Everybody in this country is taught from infancy that the suffragettes had to wrest votes for women from a brutal male establishment that was protecting the monopoly exercised by all men. Everybody is looking at history with one eye. As a matter of fact, men did have to fight before all men could get the vote, and the men's fight did not include debating halls, demonstrations and salons, nor even from the relative safety of the prison cell. Before all British men were allowed to vote, poor young men had to be wounded in millions, after dying in hundreds of thousands in a war from which all women were exempted solely by reasons of their gender. The Military Service Act, under which every British man aged 18 to 41 was subject to conscription for the First World War. The actual wording of the Act was that every man of the age was deemed to have enlisted. Without any voice in the matter, therefore, every adult male was at that moment subject to military law. If he didn't go quietly, as most did of course, he could be forcibly removed from his home, transported to the front line. If he protested that he couldn't see any sense in the insane conflict, he might be subject to a cursory field court-martial and executed by firing squad. Most of the propertyless, working-class men who then suffered in the mud and were blown to shreds in some of the most gruesome carnage in human history had no right to vote. Before 1918, the vote was restricted not simply by sex, but also by property qualifications. Please bear in mind, black Americans got the right to vote when the Republicans passed the 15th Amendment on February 3rd, 1870, a full 50 years before. The 1918 Act is rightly most famous for having brought more than 8 million women into the electoral vote, but for the first time it also enfranchised more than 5 million men over the age of 21 without regard to property or class. It is also true, as a whole, that the complete story does credit both to Britain and to men, whose memory deserve our continuing honour, compassion and respect.
Once more! Unto the breach! Dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead! In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard-favoured rage. Then lend the eye a terrible aspect, let it pry through the portage of the head like the brass cannon. Let the brow o'erwhelm it as fearfully as doth a gored rock, or hang on jutty his confounded base, swilled with a wild and wasteful ocean. Now set the teeth, and stretch the nostril wide. Hold hard the breath, and bend up every spirit to his full height. On, you noblest English, whose blood is fit from fathers of war-proof. Fathers that, like so many Alexanders, have in these parts from morn till even fought, and sheathed their swords for lack of argument. Dishonor not your mothers. Now attest that those whom you called fathers did beget you. Be copy now to men of grosser blood, and teach them how to war. And you, good yeomen, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not, for there is none of you so mean and base that hath not noble lustre in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry God for Harry! England and St.